Here at the Defense Department, we are restoring the warrior ethos, and that means we got to be fit to fight inside all of our formations. That starts with standards and going back to basics. So for decades, the military I joined, there were different male and female physical standards because men and women are different, and that's understandable. But there were certain jobs, combat MOSs, that were only for men, and so you had a male standard. Then in 2015, under the Obama administration, against the advice of the military services, opened up all those combat MOSs to males and females. Fine, if that's their decision. But they never changed the standards in a lot of those roles. So you still had higher standards for men than for women in a lot of those combat MOSs. Some changed it, but not all did. We're fixing that. We're ensuring that any combat position across any of the services, and the services are evaluating that, has the same standard for men and women, which means anybody can join, but the standard is to meet what it takes to do that combat job, rigorous physical standards, so that your sons and daughters, those that join our military, have the best possible units, the most lethal units. So this is a standard review, looking at combat units, looking at men and women. No standards will be lowered, only at the highest level. And we look forward to all our best warriors joining those units. It's a review that's important, long overdue, and the kind of thing we promised inside the Trump administration.
Qualified to be in the military is a test of strength and discipline. And for the longest time, women were getting slightly a little bit of a pass. So if you wanted to be a Marine, men needed to do at minimum 3 pull-ups or 34 push-ups in 2 minutes. Women only had to do 1 pull-up or 15 push-ups. Men had to run 1.5 miles in 13 minutes, not that fast, while females were given 15 minutes. Well, Secretary Hegseth says enough is enough when it comes to lowering standards. And so what is he doing now? He's now ordering the military to come up with one standard for both sexes.
I'll show you one thing. It's a new memorandum that's coming out today on combat arms standards. You see, for far too long, we allowed standards to slip, and different standards for men and women and combat arms MOSs and jobs. That's not acceptable.
Joining me now, Tim Kennedy, former Army Special Forces, sniper and former UFC fighter. Why does this matter?
When you are having 2 different standards for our warriors going into war, it's idiotic. It's going to get Americans killed, and it's ultimately going to lead to the demise of the most important country that's ever existed in our species' existence.
I'm privileged to know many former special ops men. But you could tell it doesn't sit well with people who make it, and then they see others make it with standards that are obviously lowered. So I'm not sure if it's as much of a morale thing as just a fairness thing, and then, of course, concern if the you-know-what hits the fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's a meritocracy. It's merit-based everything. When the only metric of measurement is lethality, your ability to do your job. I've existed in 2 different arenas, literally and figuratively. One as a Green Beret on the battlefield, and the other as a fighter in the UFC. And in both of those, obviously, we have very clear standards of what it means to be successful in these very violent arenas. And the thought that we're going to have different standards for somebody to ultimately have what is going to be the same outcome, which is death and mayhem and pain. It's the success of our country. It's us winning a war and preventing the next war. And to have different standards is just it's beyond dangerous, because it's intellectually dishonest, because they're just playing games with Americans' lives, and that's beyond cruel. It's time for us to say enough is enough. Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of Defense, and the President has said it's clear. If you're in combat arms, and I 100% support this, if you're in combat arms, there's one standard. You can do the job or you can't do the job. This is not the place to play games.
If you're a drone operator, however, why would it matter?
And it shouldn't matter, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about cooks. We're not talking about somebody pushing pencils. We're talking about people that are going to be infantry, that are going to be riflemen, that are going to be special forces, that are going to be Navy SEALs, that are going to be going to Ranger School.